First of all, melancholia is, in its etymology, an ancient to medieval. It's kind of in the in-between there. Diagnosis, it literally means black bile, because it was referred to as part of the four temperaments and sort of a contrast to the four humors. It's considered an imbalance in the bloods and in the fluids of the body. They often use the term saturnine, meaning someone who was really sad, because they believed that the planet of Saturn was overexerting its influence upon them, and that's where sadness came from. So again, I'm not one of these people who's overly interested in the question of believing in these mythologies or cosmologies. I'm intrigued by the sort of rare and intricate epistemologies that form them. Not whether or not Saturn actually aligns with your universal energies and stuff. That's not me. But I'm the one who likes the storytelling dimensions of it, the narrative and philosophical complexities of these things, blah, blah, blah. So what we get from the beginning in this idea that it's a cosmic psychosis, right? If it comes from a planet in the solar system, we're talking about cosmic psychosis for melancholia. Now, believe it or not, that is exactly what psychoanalysis ends up replicating in a certain way. An outside source that then becomes an innate experience. The melancholic person seems to be as if they're walking around with just some funk inside of them. It's intrinsic, it's inherent, it's inborn almost. And so that means, but it comes from the foreign or the external, right? That's the relationality that is in the ancient, that even is in psychoanalysis to a great extent. They miss that, though, that connection in certain ways we'll get into. But what we're talking about to a certain extent then is what you guys in your new philosophical lingo would call determinism, but what the ancients would call accursiveness, right? Melancholia is the one psychological condition that we can put in the realm of the accursed. The person is just damned, or which requires us to develop, which we will in this class today, a philosophy of doom. What does it mean to be doomed? It's a very special category to exist in. Well, let me give you a cool thing from my book of tricks. There's a medieval work of alchemy, spell making, occultism called the Ayat al-Hakim, which has been translated as the Picatrix in Latin, but is actually, what it actually means is the aim of the sage. It was written, it's arguable as to who actually wrote it, but it was most likely written by a gentleman named Al-Qurtubi in the 11th century. Now, look at this quote that I've included for you. He has all the planets and he enlists all these connections to them. Just look at how amazing medieval thought was. And it's completely made up. I'm not attributing any authenticity to this. What I'm saying is, look at the imaginative figments of connection here. Mars is the source of attractive power. He governs an aspect toward knowledge of nature. He rules surgery and the taming of wild beasts, extracting teeth, bloodletting, and circumcision. From the languages, he governs Persian. From the external appendages, he governs the right nostril. From the internal organs, he governs the gallbladder, whence comes yellow bile and heat. From the instincts, he governs those that cause anger and war. From the religions, he governs heretical sects and those people who switch from one religion to another. From cloth types, he governs linen, the pelts of rabbits and dogs, and other various pelts. From the crafts, he governs ironworking with fire, warfare, and banditry. From the tastes, he governs the hot, the dry, and the bitter. Among locations, he governs army camps, forts, defensible places, battlefields, places where fires are lit, where animals are beheaded, where wolves, bears, and wild beasts gather, and places of judgment. From the stones, he governs carnelian and all dark and red stones. From the metals, he governs arsenic, i.e., a red pigment of gold, sulfur, naphtha, glass, and red bronze. From the plants, he governs every hot plant, such as pepper, pine, scammony, cumin, caraway, laurel, euphorbia, hemlock, and trees that are good for burning. From the spices, he governs all those with a poor balance of humors, which kill all those who eat them due to an excessive heat within. From the incenses, he governs red sandalwood. From the animals, he governs red camels, all animals with large red teeth and dangerous wild animals. From the small animals, he governs those doing harm, such as vipers, scorpions, mice, and similar things. From the colors, he governs bright red. And there are 7 or 8 others according to the other planets that are just like this. The level of intricacy and specificity of this is astounding. I would take this over 99.9% of academic books any day of the week being written. The experimentation of it. But then the question of how does one even form this insane epistemological sort of taxonomy? How does he decide? How does Al-Qurtubi, who is a scientist, mathematician, biological scientist, a medical figure, how does he do this completely illegitimate dance of forces and all that? How does he construct them? Obviously, he has to have some kind of scientific method underpinning this. This can't be just purely random or whimsical organization, because he has to keep them straight so that he can also differentiate them. It's an interesting question. We'll get into that. It has to do with melancholy, actually. Now, a nice thing, because now all of you are dear friends of mine, I'll give you a little behind the scenes of something funny. So I think it was 2 nights ago that someone that many of you know, Reza Negarestani, called me up with a bizarre fact that he likes to give me some from time to time. And he calls me and he tells me, I have something for your next book. And I said, okay, tell me. And apparently, recently, he's been reading a great deal about a particular poison called Aconitum ferox. Now, the reason he's been, why he's reading this, I don't know, but he wanted to share it with me, and we went on for 2 hours talking about this. It's often called the long black sleep of the night. It is the sacred drug of a group of a South Asian cult called the Aghoris, those of the left-hand path tantric Shivites, meaning they're devotees of the Hindu deity Shiva. They smoke the dried roots in a practice, this is a quote from online, that is part consciousness expanding by entheogen. That entheogen means a psychoactive substance that induces mood or perception alteration.